started making videos on like clothing color psychology and how to get a job and things like that. I was getting like 30 views on YouTube, like nothing much. Somebody told me about narcissism, and this person had been a covert passive-aggressive narcissist. What is that? I never even heard that term before. Voraciously learning everything I can about narcissism, not for anything other than for myself. So in January of 2020, I do one video on how to negotiate with a narcissist. I had 300 subscribers on my YouTube channel at that point, and I got 700 views. I thought, oh, okay, I'm totally onto something here. So I decided to create a course called Slay Your Negotiation with a Narcissist, and I came up with this acronym SLAY. Strategy, leverage, anticipate.
This is the Gold Digger Podcast.
Rebecca, welcome to the Gold Digger Podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. So excited to be here and so excited to be with you.
Okay, so I know your work today, and I think what's so amazing is that most people that are listening, if they're familiar with you and your work, they know what you do now, but you have a super interesting background. In fact, that was one of the things that caught my attention when I started learning more about who you are, how you show up in the world, how you serve. You were recognized by U.S. News as one of the best lawyers in America. Tell me about your career journey and how you went from there to where we are now today.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a journey for me because I was actually just had this conversation with somebody yesterday. I thought that the journey for me was I wanted to be the best possible divorce lawyer on the planet. And I set out to build this massive practice. And, that was the top rung for me, right? And so I remember actually when I went in to be interviewed as a law student, that the lawyers that I was interviewing with had this big book on their desk, and it said the best lawyers in America. And yes. It was, this U.S. News thing. And I was so impressed. And they had this big velvet bookmark. And I thought, oh my God, it would be so amazing to get my name in that book. And, that was my goal, was to get that. And that's like the top 1% of lawyers. And so for me to build my practice to get there, and divorce lawyers that specialize in high net worth divorce litigation it's a very specialized area of the law. You have to know trust law, business law, tax law. There's a very, when you're divorcing a nurse and a teacher or something, it's not as complicated. But to know how to divorce wealthy people, you have to be able to understand a lot of very complicated areas of the law. And so I came up through the ranks that way. And so by the time 2017 rolled around, I was very much at the top of my game, and I had represented household names that you would know. And I was on television on a regular basis. I was being called upon by Extra to comment when celebrities were were divorcing. You can Google my name and you'll see, when Brad and Angelina were getting divorced, I was on TV, and when Liam and Miley were getting divorced, there I was. And so I really thought that was it. But really what happened was I became a prisoner of my success. And so I always say I built it and it ate me. I had no life. Literally no life. And my daughter was just finishing 8th grade, and I was like seeing the end of the road. And I thought I remember so vividly that she was in private school, and I had marked myself out to leave at noon because the moms were getting together to go to take the kids to lunch and go to the blow dry bar and get makeup done because they had an 8th grade graduation that night. And I was like not going to make it because all these emergencies were happening with my clients. And I wanted to go with the moms and the girls to go to the blow dry bar and go get makeup done. And my paralegal was like, you're not going to make it. You know, there's all these things are blowing up with these cases. And I'm like, I'm going to the blow dry bar. This is what's happening. And I just literally left. And my clients were pissed and whatever. And I did not care because it was like, and so I just decided I had to get out of that. So I merged my practice with 2 other guys. And we moved from Naples, Florida to LA at that time because I really wanted space and I wanted more entrepreneurial endeavors and I wanted more space to create. And I realized I was more of a creator at heart at that point. And I had already written one best-selling book at that point, which was Breaking Free, a step-by-step divorce guide. And so that's when I got into more entrepreneurial endeavors. And in one of those, that's when I ended up with a woman who turned out to be a narcissist.
Let's talk about this. So I love what you were saying about you built this incredible career, right? You hit the top of the top. Like you were doing things probably beyond your wildest dreams and visions. And yet I think like so many of us, especially women who are achievers, we reach those quote peaks and all of a sudden we're like, this isn't what I thought, or like, this doesn't feel like I thought it would feel. And we're kind of faced with this like invitation of like, we have to redefine what success looks like for us and figure out how do we either move away from what is not serving us or move towards what is. So you walked away from this practice that most lawyers only dream of having, and you start this new endeavor. Talk about this narcissist and how it kind of opened doors that maybe you hadn't really seen right in front of you.
Yes. I had really reached, this pinnacle of success and thought, I mean, to the point that other lawyers had called the guy that I was merging my practice with and asked if I had cancer. Like why would she walk away from this size of a practice? Like I was literally, at the top of my game. And so I got into this business endeavor with this woman who was, it's one thing to advocate on behalf of others. But when you are for me, in a partnership with someone who's supposed to be your equal, and it was a female, and this person turned out to be what I didn't have the language for at the time, a covert passive-aggressive narcissist. Everybody thought she was so nice, and she was very charming. And, I didn't speak up when I saw things happening. I felt I was transported back to when I had been bullied as a kid. And I had lived this whole life already, very successful. I thought I had processed all of these emotions from when I had been bullied as a kid for being Asian. Here I'd had this whole big life back in Naples, Florida, where I was on top of my game. I had a lot of friends. I was married. I made my daughter, my life was good, and I had, mind you, I gotten married when I was 19. I had the first time. I had 3 kids by the time I was 22. Because I had dropped out of college, I went back to law school at night and had met my second husband, who I'm still married to now, when I was still in my 20s. I had gone back to, University of Miami and gone to night school and went to law school 100% on student loans. And so I had literally gotten out of the trenches, and built this law practice, So I had come up from the ranks. And so, I really felt like I was on top of my game. And when this happened, I really was very stymied at this point. Confused. I was thinking about it in the middle of the night, ruminating about it, obsessing about it, brushing my teeth in the morning, obsessing about it, talking to my husband, talking to my friends, walking around my house. I just was so feeling this pit in my stomach constantly about this situation. But not sure what was going on in my life at that time. And it really threw me for a loop.
So what did you do? Because there was a turn of events with this. How did this situation lead you into what you're doing today and what you're now known for?
Yeah. So I ended up going on vacation, and it was only in July of 2019. I remember going on vacation with my husband and my daughter, and we were in Hawaii. And we went up to the top of a mountain in Mount Haleakala, which I don't know if you've ever done that, but you get up in the morning, You go to sunrise, and it's so beautiful. It's literally like heaven on earth. And my daughter, it's like 2:30 in the morning. It's like you go from like 90 degrees to like 30 degrees, but it's beautiful. I mean, literally stunning. And my daughter, who was 17 at the time, she says, "Mom, oh my gosh, it's beautiful. It's heaven on earth." And I'm up there with the people I love. And my daughter says this, and I said, "Yeah, it is. It's gorgeous. It's heaven on earth." And all I could think about was this narcissistic person. And I thought, no. You do not get to be here. You do not get to be here in heaven on earth. And that was that. The person who walked up that mountain was not the same person who walked down. I literally made a decision in that moment that I was done. And I realized in that moment I was being a victim. And I was every moment that I gave that person, I was allowing myself to be a victim. And I made a decision in that moment. I was getting out of that partnership. And as soon as I got back from vacation, I told her I was done. And I was going to make it, amicable, but of course she couldn't do that. But that's a whole other thing. But I decided I was going to finish my book, Negotiate Like You Matter, which I sent it out for endorsements. And I didn't even know Robert Shapiro, but he immediately emails me back and says, "Call me." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I called him, and he says, he offers to write the foreword for the book. So like magic starts to happen. And during that time, I was teaching myself the YouTube algorithms, and I started following Russell Brunson, and I was learning about funnels and things like that. And so I started to do some YouTube videos. I thought I would do negotiation in general. And I started making videos on like clothing color psychology and how to get a job and things like that. I was getting like 30 views on YouTube, like nothing much. And at the same time, somebody told me about narcissism, and this person had been a covert passive-aggressive narcissist. And I thought, what is that? I never even heard that term before. And so I'm voraciously learning everything I can about narcissism, not for anything other than for myself. But then I was still practicing law part-time, so I was still flying back to Florida a week, a month from LA. So I started applying what I was learning about narcissism to my cases. And lo and behold, it's like I discovered penicillin. All of a sudden, I start seeing movement in these people. And I thought, oh my God, I'm totally onto something. So in January of 2020, I do one video on how to negotiate with a narcissist. I had 300 subscribers on my YouTube channel at that point, and I got 700 views on that video. I thought, oh, okay, I'm totally onto something here. So I decided to create a course called Slay Your Negotiation with a Narcissist, and I came up with this acronym SLAY: Strategy, Leverage, Anticipate, and You. I decide, let me see if I can get the intellectual property on the word slay, which I was able to do. So I own that word. And I decide I'm going to go live with this course on March 11th, which I had no idea what's going to happen in the world at this point.
Yes.
And I do. I go live with it on March 11th. And I came up with this webinar, 3 Must-Have Secrets to Communicating with a Narcissist, which, by the way, is still my evergreen webinar.
Love.
And by January of 2021, I had over 100,000 subscribers on my channel. I know that for sure. And I had made $1.1 million on that course.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So let's talk about this, because one thing I love about your story, Rebecca, is like you were learning all of these pieces of the puzzle, but we weren't quite sure exactly how they were all going to fit together, right? You're learning YouTube algorithms, you're learning funnels, you're learning about digital courses, you're learning about all these things. And isn't it interesting to think, too, that you could have gone with an entirely different lens, hit a totally different market or no market at all, and how you kind of uncovered, like, wait, this is getting traction. This is proof people are interested. This is where I can go. Walk me through what it's been like since you published that first video on YouTube, saw that traction. Did you go hard? Did you go deep? Like, how did you kind of let the people speak of what they're most curious about and help that guide your next steps?
Well, it wasn't so easy, frankly, because at first when I saw that hit, I thought, I don't know if I want to be the narcissism queen. Yeah, it wasn't so easy for me because when I saw that first one hit, I thought, okay, I definitely need to make more content around that. But then I thought, I don't know if I really want to be the narcissism queen, like it wasn't like I really wanted to be negotiation. Like that was sort of where I wanted to go. But then I thought, well, let me just make 8 videos on this. And I had talked to my brother was one of the founding executives of a company called DoubleClick, which is a digital course. A digital company, which it was originally purchased by Google a long time ago. And so he was like, just ride the wave, he just thought ride the wave. And at the time he was in the middle of a messy divorce, and I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll just do this for a little while and just see how it goes, so, and it was really, honestly, when I started, the other piece of it, frankly, was I wasn't really ready to talk about my experience with having been in that relationship, because I thought, how did I end up there?
Yeah.
It was kind of shameful for me. Yeah, because I thought I'm supposed to be strong. I was supposed to be this badass attorney. How did I end up there? And then I thought, I need to get over this blame and shame, and I needed to really let people know that they don't attach themselves to you because you have so little value. They attach themselves to you because you have so much. And they're really good at what they do. You know, they're good at mirroring you. They're good at love bombing you. And it's not just a romantic relationship. It's business relationships. It's all kinds of relationships. So I wanted to let people know that it could be anybody, you know? And the more authentic and vulnerable I got, the more traction I got. You know, and I couldn't be anybody but myself because, you know, I at least I try to be the same, you know, here and here, you know. I want to believe that I'm the same if we're having coffee or if we're having this conversation, you know, on a podcast, right? And so I wanted people to know that it can happen to anybody. And the more I did that, the more views I started to get and the more people I started to help.
What did it feel like going from that like very powerful position as a lawyer to this more like vulnerable, authentic person? You're no longer necessarily representing other people and their stories. You're telling your story. And I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, that is so hard. I know so many entrepreneurs who just want to hide behind their work, right? Where it's like, look, but don't look too close. But I do think that you touched on something, that authenticity and that vulnerability is what connects human to human. And the fact that you are this strong, powerful woman and this still happened to you is a sign that it, again, can happen to anyone, and it likely is. And so what did it feel like kind of putting on that new identity of like, okay, I can be me and I can tell my story and it can be received? How was that experience?
It was hard. At first, it was really hard. I mean, honestly, I, you know, but the more emails and messages that I got, the easier that it got, because I truly get, I mean, now it's thousands, but they come in every single day, literally every day. I have a full team now of VAs that answer my emails and texts and DMs, that it's literally full time of people whose lives we touch. And my head of sales, actually, she made the point that the people whose lives that we're changing, it's not just them, it's generational. And when she said that, I literally got chills down to my core.
Let's talk about, because one thing I love, one thing I love about your story is that this didn't unfold all that long ago, right? I think a lot of times we have entrepreneurs that come on that have such high levels of success, but they started so long ago. But this piece of your story only started a few years ago. So can you walk me through what it was like going from you, solopreneur, learning all the things, recording the YouTubes, to now having a team of VAs and all of these different things? Because I think for a lot of entrepreneurs listening, they're at that beginning place where they're wearing all the hats, they're doing all the things. And so what have the last few years looked like as you've expanded, as you've done, you know, millions of dollars in sales and gotten millions of views on YouTube? How have you kind of grown this into a business that has like a team supporting it?
It was actually so hard because especially it happened so fast. It happened so fast.
Yeah.
But this year I hired a COO. I have TD Jakes' former COO, and it has been so helpful. And he actually, you know, I now have a full suite of salespeople, and I have, you know, a CFO. But it was so hard. I was sitting with a friend of mine who sources executives just because our kids happen to go to UC Davis together, and her name is Tracy Porterfield. I don't know if you know her, but she. She's Hobie
Porterfield's ex-wife, and Amy is one of my best friends, so I know Tracy.
Exactly. Yes, yeah. So Tracy's son goes to UC Davis with my daughter, and our kids are like best friends. And so we happened to be having dinner together about a year ago now. And I was like, I think I need a COO. I'm like literally drowning. And she said, well, I will look around and see if I can find you one. And I said, I don't know if I'm quite ready. And she looked at me and she's like, you're ready.
Yeah. That's so awesome.
So, yeah. And so I said, okay, I think maybe I am. And she's like, you're ready. So she found me this guy who is literally has saved me so much. And it's been amazing to have him, really amazing. But it was hard to let go of the reins. Very hard. Very hard.
Yeah, I think most entrepreneurs experience that is like you have to loosen the grip, right? Like we get so used to white knuckling different aspects of our businesses and our lives. And it's like once you start to loosen the grip, you start to experience the freedom that you likely were after when you started this whole thing in the first place. One thing that I'm super curious about, so once your channel started gaining that traction, you kind of shifted into digital products. So you built online programs, you have your own podcast, you continue to share all of your information, you have books. So can you kind of share a little bit about like how you decided where to go next in terms of where you were showing up on the platforms? For people listening, I think a lot of people might have one platform that they're confident in and they're showing up on, but you kind of started to expand, which then expanded both your reach and your income. So what did that look like for you?
Well, I really started with YouTube, and let me tell you why. And then I went into Instagram. I mean, and so the reason why I started with YouTube, and I really highly recommend if you're trying to figure out where do I start and then where do I go next, is because YouTube is a search engine first and foremost, and it is owned by it's the second largest search engine owned by the first largest search engine, and that is why I strategically chose YouTube first, because it is 24/7 free traffic. It is different, and you have to think of it differently than you think about any other social media platform. And most people think of it as another social media platform, and it is really not. It is, if you think about Instagram or you think about Facebook and you do a post, that post is really gone after 24 hours or maybe 48 if you're lucky. But with YouTube, if somebody goes in and searches, divorcing a narcissist or breaking up with a narcissistic business partner or whatever, that video, even if it's 2 years old, will pop up when it says videos, if it's relevant. And so people will click on it and they'll see it. And, you want to show up in search, or you want to show up in suggested, and that video will still show up in search or suggested if the keywords are right, if the description is right, if you know your algorithms, you understand algorithms, which is something that I really know a lot about at this point in my life. So if you understand that, it'll still be relevant, and it's 24/7 free traffic. So even if you don't have $1 to your name to start a business, it is a really great way to, start. And all you need is a decent microphone and, understanding how to do the videos as well. So I would say start there, and then you can repurpose that content and drive everything else to your YouTube. So then, all your other platforms then are used to drive the traffic back to YouTube. That's what I would recommend. And that's how I did it. My Instagram really, everything else was served that way. Almost all of my traffic has been organic. I still haven't really mastered the paid traffic game. And I have 220,000 on my email list. I have 120,000 in my Facebook group. I mean, and I still haven't figured out the paid media very, very well. I've tested it a little bit, but I still haven't figured out how to do it very well. So that's my recommendation.
Well, it seems like you're doing just fine without it. How are you leveraging your content then to do the important things like you just referenced, grow your email list, sell your course, get your book out into the world? How are you leveraging your content in a thoughtful way? Because I think a lot of times people get really good on the platform, but then they're not thinking about the bigger ecosystem or the fact that they want to get people into a place where they can more so control the experience and maybe have those invitations or those call to actions to take that next step, whatever it looks like.
So what I have done is then I take my whatever it is that I'm doing and I put it out onto my YouTube, and I put it out onto my Instagram, whether it's now it's my TikTok or whatever it is, and then I push it back to my call to action, whatever it is. So if I say, okay, now I'm pushing out a webinar, or I'm pushing out most recently I have a certification course, and I've been doing a webinar for that. So I'll, ask people to opt in to whatever it is that I am doing. So if it's a webinar or, whatever it is, then I use my stories, I use my Instagram, and I get people to sign up for the live, or, I still have an evergreen as well. So the way I have done it traditionally is I have a YouTube video, I have a freebie, I have people opt in, they go to an email nurture sequence, the email nurture sequence then invites them to the free webinar, and they watch the free webinar, and the free webinar then sells the course. I mean, that's how I've made, I still make 6 figures a month on that. So, I mean, that's what I have traditionally done. Now with the certification, because my certification course is, a larger ticket item, I do have a live webinar for that, and I have them book a call for that to my sales team, because that is something that, is a little bit more of a nurturing process to sell. So, I have that. I'm getting ready to launch a mastermind that's going to have 3 different levels, and that's going to be launched at my virtual book launch event, and we're going to sell that in a little bit of a different process as well. But I think, now that I have a much bigger community, I have options. Once you have a big list, you have, and I have a huge Facebook group as well, I say to everybody, you have, as Russell Brunson always says, you have traffic that you control. I have a big community. And my fans, I'm very grateful, are extremely loyal to me. I mean, once you make an impact on people's lives, they want to be with you more. They want to do things with you, and so, and if you nurture them, and if you are respectful of them and honor them, then they will want to be with you and do things with you. I love that. So, I mean, I think that's what I have done. I have only just recently started to think about creating more strategic partnerships. I just recently talked to Lisa Bilyeu, because she and I were saying, hey, we have communities that very much complement each other, and saying, hey, we should do more things. So we're talking about that. And I think that there's a whole lot more opportunity for me with that. I just, I have, because of the size of my list and things like that, I know that I have a lot more opportunities. My podcast is in the top 0.5%. But all of that is really a function of the fact that I focused on YouTube and the power of SEO. The power of SEO.
Yeah. I love that. Rebecca, what would you say if somebody was listening to this show right now and they are where you once were? Maybe what the world would deem as successful, or they've achieved that thing that they thought was never going to be possible for them, but they woke up and they were like, this is not what I want. This is not what I want for my life. What would you say to somebody? Because this was you not that long ago, and people probably thought you were crazy for walking away from what you walked away from. But look at what has unfolded in your life since making that decision. So what advice would you give to somebody listening that might be where you once were?
Oh my gosh, I have had so many times that people were naysayers for me. Do you know that when I decided to go back to law school with 3 babies, people said, why would you want to go to law school? Everybody graduating from law school is bagging groceries right now. There's too many lawyers. Yes, somebody actually said that to me. And I remember saying, well, somebody is going to get a job. Why wouldn't it be me? Like,
yes.
You know, I mean, like, you just have to close your ears and you just have to do your thing. I mean, I really believe that I think sometimes people are jealous and they don't want to sometimes see people succeed. You know, I think our brains are not wired for success. They're wired for survival. And, you know, I think that we are, I don't want to say fear-based, but sometimes scarcity-based. And, you know, we literally have to retrain our brains to do the thing. And, you know, I think that if you just create, you know, the S in SLAY for me. So I have strategy, leverage, anticipate, and you, right? And the S in SLAY is to create a vision. The first thing you have to do is create a vision. And so many times people are in defense mode so often, and they think, oh, you know, I just want them to stop lying, or I just don't want to be living like this anymore, whatever it is. And they don't stop to think, what is it that I actually want? You know, I really want this. You know, I want to have, you know, whatever settlement it is, or I want to create this goal in my life, or I want, and be really, really specific about the vision for what it is that you want. And I think the more clear that you can be about what it is that you want, the universe wants it for you. And it'll just, like for me, like when I said, okay, I don't want to live this life. Every moment I'm giving this person, I'm being a victim. And I said, I want to be in create mode. The universe just lined up for me, right? Like when you decide, like the word side, actually the root of that is side. It's to kill, to cut off. And so when you decide, you're killing off any other possibilities. And you just, if you're 100%, all of your cells in your body just line up for that. And it's so incredible. And it's like light waves, you know?
I love
and
that.
I just think that you can just go for it.
Where can everybody find out more about you, learn from you, get their hands on your new book? Give me all the places that they can get more Rebecca.
Yeah. So my new book is Slay the Bully, which is Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and When. And they can go to slaythebully.com. And I actually am so excited because we are going to be having, I don't know, this is dropping after our launch event, but so just go to slaythebully.com and you can get tons and tons of bonuses, and including a masterclass and a workbook, and access to behind the scenes things. So slaythebully.com, and you'll learn how to actually negotiate with a narcissist, which it'll literally change your life. literally change your life so that you can be free. You can be free and live the life that you were meant to live. And that's what it's all about, at your highest level, your highest purpose. And we were all meant to do great things.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Congratulations on your new book. It was such a pleasure talking to you, and I love watching you soar.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and you're amazing too.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you have a quick second, take a second, make sure you're subscribed to my show. And if you love today's marketing tips, tricks, strategies, and life talk, then check out this episode. You are going to love it.
You know more than anyone else, couple things. One is that you have to be able to expand your capacity for what you get done if you want to grow. What got you here is not going to get you there, right? So all of the different tricks and tools and techniques that you use to get you to this level, if you want to either grow your team